Chairman Park's hands began shaking when he saw the name on the contract. The
Her
company that
company?
could save his collapsing empire belonged to the same black American woman he once accused of destroying his son's future. 5 years earlier, the Park family watched Jun-Ho Park walk away from billions because he chose Naomi. They called her a distraction. They said she would never understand their world. But now, with their company losing millions and their reputation falling apart, the woman they rejected was the only person standing between them and complete failure. Nobody in that room knew the most shocking part. Naomi Carter had every reason to let them lose everything. The room that had once been filled with confidence was now filled with panic. Executives who had spent decades protecting the Park family name were whispering among themselves. Some stared at the documents in disbelief. Others looked toward Chairman Park, waiting for him to say something that could somehow make the situation disappear. But for the first time in years, the powerful chairman had no answer. The name on the agreement was impossible to ignore: Naomi Carter. The woman he had once believed was not good enough for his son. The woman he thought would destroy Jun-Ho's future. The woman his family had pushed away. Now she was the only person who could stop their company from falling. Across the table, Jun-Ho Park sat quietly, watching the tension unfold. He knew this moment would come one day, but he never imagined it would happen like this. His father looked at him with a mixture of disbelief and confusion. "Did you know?" Chairman Park finally asked. Jun-Ho did not answer immediately, because the truth was complicated. He knew Naomi was successful. He knew she had built something remarkable. But even he did not expect his family's survival to one day depend on her. 5 years earlier, nobody in that room would have believed this was possible. 5 years earlier, Naomi Carter was simply the woman they blamed. Before she became the founder of one of the fastest-growing technology companies in the world, before investors fought for meetings with her, before her name carried weight in international business circles, she was just a woman trying to build a life in a place where many people had already decided who she was before knowing her. Naomi had moved from Atlanta, Georgia, to Seoul with a dream and a determination that refused to be ignored. She was used to being underestimated. Back home, people had questioned whether a young black woman could build a serious career in a competitive industry. In Korea, the questions came in a different form. They questioned whether she understood the culture, whether she could adapt, whether someone like her could truly succeed in a world where relationships and reputation mattered deeply. But Naomi had never built her life around convincing people who had already made up their minds. She built it by showing up, working harder, and allowing her results to speak. That was what first caught Jun-Ho Park's attention, not her appearance, not the fact that she was different from everyone he had known. It was her confidence. The first time they met, Naomi was standing in a conference room surrounded by executives who had already dismissed her ideas before she finished explaining them. One executive leaned back in his chair and said, "Your approach sounds impressive, but this market is more complicated than you realize." Naomi looked at the presentation in front of her, then calmly looked back at him. "I understand the market," she replied. "That is exactly why I created this strategy." The room became quiet. Most people would have backed down. Naomi did not. She continued explaining the data, the risks, and the opportunities she had discovered. Everyone listened politely, but only one person actually paid attention: Jun-Ho. After the meeting ended, he found her outside the conference room. "You knew they weren't going to agree with you," he said. Naomi looked surprised. "Then why did you keep presenting?" She smiled slightly. "Because someone disagreeing with me does not mean they are right." That answer stayed with him. For most of his life, Jun-Ho had been surrounded by people who agreed with him because of his family name. People respected him because he was the heir to the Park Empire. But Naomi was different. She did not care about his last name. She did not treat him like a future chairman, she treated him like a person, and that was something he had not experienced in a long time. Their friendship grew slowly. They talked after work. They shared their frustrations. Naomi told him about constantly having to prove herself. Jun-ho admitted something he had never said publicly. "Everyone thinks being born into a powerful family means you are free," he told her one evening. "But sometimes it feels like the moment you are born, your entire life has already been planned." Naomi looked at him and understood, because she knew what it felt like to fight against expectations. The difference was that Jun-ho had spent his life trying to meet them, while Naomi had spent hers fighting to create her own path. Somewhere between those conversations, something changed. Jun-ho stopped seeing Naomi as someone impressive. He started seeing her as someone he could not imagine losing. And Naomi began seeing past the wealth, the family name, and the perfect image. She saw a man who had everything the world wanted, but still felt like he was missing something. But falling in love with Jun-ho meant entering a world where love was not the only thing that mattered. Because the Park family had built their entire identity around legacy. And when Jun-ho finally introduced Naomi to them, they did not see the woman he loved. They saw a challenge to everything they believed in. The first meeting between Naomi Carter and the Park family was the moment everything changed. Jun-ho had prepared her for it. "My father can be difficult," he warned her before they arrived. Naomi looked at him and smiled. "I've met difficult people before." Jun-ho laughed softly. "You don't understand. My father is not just difficult. He built an entire company by never allowing anyone to challenge him." Naomi reached for his hand. "Then maybe he needs to meet someone who is not afraid to challenge him." At the time, Jun-ho admired her confidence, but he also knew what she was walking into. The Park family home represented everything his father valued. Generations of success, tradition, reputation, every detail was carefully controlled. And when Naomi entered that room, everyone noticed, not because she was unwelcome, at least not openly, but because she was different. The conversation remained polite, too polite. Mrs. Park asked Naomi about her family, her career, and her life in America. At first, Naomi believed she was simply trying to get to know her. But slowly, she realized the questions were not about curiosity. They were about evaluation. "Your parents must be very proud of you," Mrs. Park said. "They are," Naomi replied. "And they were comfortable with you moving so far away." Naomi nodded. "They raised me to believe that I should follow my dreams, even when they take me somewhere unexpected." Mrs. Park smiled politely, but Chairman Park remained silent. He studied Naomi the way he studied business deals, looking for weaknesses, looking for risks. Finally, he spoke. "You have achieved a lot at a young age." Naomi thanked him. "But my son has responsibilities that go beyond personal ambition." Jun-ho immediately noticed the change in tone. "Father." Chairman Park continued. "The Park name represents decades of work. It cannot simply be ignored because of feelings." Naomi stayed calm. "I understand the importance of family." "Do you?" Chairman Park asked. The question carried more weight than a simple conversation. "I do," Naomi answered. "But I also believe family should support the people inside it, not only the image they represent." The room became quiet. Jun-ho looked at Naomi. He knew she had just said what many people were afraid to say to his father. Chairman Park did not respond. But from that moment, his opinion was clear. He did not see Naomi as someone who could become part of the family. He saw her as someone who could change his son, and that frightened him. Over the following months, the tension grew. Jun-ho tried to balance both sides. He wanted Naomi to feel accepted. He wanted his family to understand why she mattered. But the more he tried to explain, the more his father believed Naomi was pulling him away. One evening, Chairman Park called his son to his office. "You are making a mistake." Jun-ho stood quietly. "About what?" "About her." Jun-ho's expression changed. "Her name is Naomi." His father looked at him. "You see, this is exactly the problem. You are already choosing her over your responsibility." Jun-ho shook his head. "No, I am choosing my life." Chairman Park stood from his desk. "Your life was given to you by this family, and I am grateful." "Then act like it." For years, Jun-ho had accepted those words. He had accepted the pressure, the expectations, the idea that his happiness came second. But Naomi had shown him something different, a life where he could make choices because he wanted them, not because he was forced to. That was why his father's next words hurt more than he expected. "If you marry her, you cannot expect to continue as my successor." The room went silent. Jun-ho understood exactly what his father was saying. Choose Naomi or choose the empire. When he told Naomi what happened, she did not celebrate. She did not feel victorious. Instead, she looked heartbroken. "I never wanted you to lose your family because of me." Jun-ho sat beside her. "You didn't take anything from me." "But everyone thinks I did." He looked at her. "Everyone has spent my entire life telling me what I should want." Naomi remained quiet. For the first time, someone asked me what I actually wanted. That was the moment Naomi understood. This was not just about their relationship. This was about a man finally choosing himself. Their wedding was not the grand event the Park family had imagined for their heir. There were no powerful executives, no massive celebration, no announcement that dominated the business world. It was small, personal, and meaningful. Jun-ho's father did not attend. His absence was felt, but Jun-ho still smiled. Because for the first time in his life, he was making a decision that belonged entirely to him. After the wedding, people expected everything to fall apart. They believed reality would eventually prove the Park family right. They believed Jun-ho would regret walking away from wealth and status. And they believed Naomi would discover that love alone could not replace the life she had taken him from. But what they did not understand was that Naomi and Jun-ho were not building a life based on what they had lost. They were building one based on what they had chosen. The first year was harder than either of them expected. Without the Park family's resources, they had to start from the beginning. Jun-ho moved from managing a corporate division to working alongside Naomi as she tried to turn her ideas into reality. And Naomi discovered that having a great idea was only the beginning. Building a company required sacrifice. There were nights when they stayed awake until sunrise. There were meetings where investors rejected them before they finished speaking. There were moments when Naomi wondered if everyone had been right. One night after another failed pitch, she sat silently in their small apartment. Jun-ho noticed, "You are thinking about giving up." Naomi looked at him. Maybe they were right. He frowned. Who? Everyone who said this was impossible. Jun-ho sat beside her. "Naomi, do you remember what you told those executives when they ignored your presentation?" She smiled slightly. "That people disagreeing with me does not mean they are right." "Exactly." He held her hand. "Don't let the people who doubted you become the reason you doubt yourself." That night, Naomi decided something. She would not build her company to prove the Park family wrong. She would build it because she believed in what she was creating, and that decision would change everything. The decision Naomi made that night became the foundation of everything that followed. She stopped trying to convince people she belonged. Instead, she focused on building something that could not be ignored. Her first breakthrough did not come from a wealthy investor or a powerful connection. It came from persistence, For months, Naomi contacted companies that refused to take her seriously. She sent proposals, attended meetings, and heard the same doubts repeatedly. Your technology is impressive, but your company is too young. Your idea is ahead of the market. We are not sure customers are ready for this. Every rejection sounded different, but the message was always the same. They saw potential, but they did not see enough proof. Naomi understood. In business, potential was not enough. Results were what changed minds, so she worked harder. She studied the market. She improved the technology. She listened to criticism instead of letting it break her. And slowly, things began to change. One small partnership became two. Two became 10. Companies that once ignored her emails started requesting meetings. People who once questioned whether she belonged in the industry started asking how they could work with her. But while Naomi's company was growing, the distance between her and the Park family was growing too. Junho's mother occasionally reached out. Small messages, simple questions. Sometimes she asked how they were doing. Sometimes she sent traditional Korean dishes because she remembered Junho's favorite meals. But Chairman Park remained silent. To him, silence was a statement. He wanted his son to understand that leaving the family had consequences. And for a while, Junho carried that pain quietly. Naomi noticed. "You miss them," she said one evening. Junho looked away. "I miss who I thought they were." She sat beside him. Maybe one day they will understand. He smiled sadly. Maybe. But neither of them knew how much their lives would change. 3 years passed, then 4, and the woman who once struggled to convince people to listen became someone the entire industry wanted to meet. Naomi Carter's company became known for creating technology that helped major fashion brands reduce waste and improve efficiency. She was invited to conferences. She was featured in business publications. She became an example of what was possible when someone refused to accept the limits others placed on them. But despite the success, Naomi never changed. She still woke up early. She still reviewed every important decision. She still remembered the people who helped her when nobody knew her name, and one person had been there through everything, Junho. The world saw him as the man who gave up a fortune for love, but Naomi knew the truth. He was the person who believed in her before anyone else did. One evening, after Naomi returned from a major business conference, she found Junho preparing dinner. She smiled. "After all these years, you still cook when I have stressful days." He looked at her. "Because after all these years, you still forget to eat when you are focused." She laughed. "I have a team for that now." "But you still need someone who knows you." The word stayed with her, because that was what Junho had always given her. Not a business opportunity, not a shortcut, not a connection. He gave her a place where she did not have to constantly prove herself, but while their world was becoming stronger, the Park empire was beginning to weaken. At first, nobody noticed. The company was too powerful, too respected, too established. For decades, the Park name had been enough to open doors, but the world was changing. Competitors were moving faster, technology was evolving, and the company that once led the industry began falling behind. Chairman Park refused to admit it. "We have survived every challenge before," he told his executives. "We will survive this one." But his executives knew the truth. This was different. Their old methods were no longer enough. The company's international partnerships began disappearing. Investors became uncertain. The reputation that had protected them for generations started becoming a burden, because a respected name could open a door, but it could not guarantee success. One night, Chairman Park sat alone in his office reviewing the numbers. For the first time in decades, he looked worried. His assistant entered quietly. "Chairman, the board wants an emergency meeting tomorrow." He did not look up. "What about?" The assistant hesitated. The future of the company. Those words bothered him more than anything, because the company was not just a business, it was his family's legacy. The same legacy he believed Junho had abandoned. Meanwhile, Junho and Naomi were unaware of the storm approaching. They were focused on their own future. Naomi's company was preparing for its biggest expansion yet. During a late-night strategy meeting, one of her executives said, "Naomi, this partnership could completely change the company." She nodded, "It can. You realize how many people doubted you when you started." Naomi smiled. "I remember. And now?" She looked through the glass windows of her office at the city below. "Now I understand something." "What?" "People's opinions change when your results become impossible to ignore." But there was one opinion Naomi had stopped waiting for: Chairman Park's. She no longer needed him to accept her. She no longer needed him to apologize. She had built a life without his approval. However, life had a way of bringing people back to the moments they thought they had escaped. And soon, the Park family would have no choice but to face the woman they had once rejected. Because the solution to their biggest crisis was closer than they ever imagined. And it carried the same name they had spent years trying to forget: Naomi Carter. The crisis inside the Park family did not happen overnight. It started with small warnings that everyone ignored: a delayed project, a lost partnership, a competitor moving faster than expected. For months, executives tried to protect the company's image. They told the public everything was under control. But behind closed doors, the situation was becoming impossible to hide. The Park Corporation, once considered one of South Korea's strongest business empires, was losing its position. And the person most affected by it was the man who built it, Chairman Park. He had spent his entire life believing that discipline, sacrifice, and tradition were the reasons for his success. He believed emotions created weakness. He believed personal choices should never interfere with family responsibility. But now, the very thing he had sacrificed everything to protect was slipping away. During the emergency board meeting, one executive placed a report on the table. "Chairman, if we do not modernize our technology within the next 6 months, we will lose our remaining international contracts." Chairman Park stared at the report. 6 months. "Oh yes, that is not enough time." The executive hesitated. "No, it isn't." For the first time, nobody in the room pretended everything would be fine. They needed a solution, not a temporary fix. A transformation. One board member finally spoke. "There is one company with the technology we need." Everyone looked at him. "Which company?" He opened the file in front of him. "NC Innovations." Chairman Park waited. "And who owns it?" The executive took a breath. "Naomi Carter." The room went silent. A name from the past. A name that had not been spoken inside that building for years. Chairman Park leaned back. "No." The executive looked confused. "Chairman, find another option. We have searched everywhere. There must be another company." "Oh, there isn't." The truth was painful. The woman he had once dismissed was now the person standing at the center of their survival. Meanwhile, Junho learned about the situation from the news. He watched the report quietly from his office. The headline appeared on the screen: Park Corporation faces growing pressure as investors demand immediate change. For a moment he said nothing. Naomi noticed his expression. "What happened?" He turned off the television. "My family's company is struggling." Naomi sat down beside him. "Did you know it was this serious?" He shook his head. No. She studied his face. You want to help? It was not a question. Junho looked away. After everything that happened, I don't know if I have the right to... Naomi understood, because leaving the Park family had not erased the connection he felt. A person could walk away from a home and still miss the people inside it. Junho, she said softly. He looked at her. You don't have to choose between your family and me. His expression changed. After everything they did, Naomi remained calm. Yes. Why? She thought for a moment. Because I know what it feels like to want someone to see your value. Junho looked at her. They hurt you. I know. They judged you. I know. Then why would you care? Naomi smiled sadly. Because their mistake was not seeing me. I don't want to make the same mistake by becoming someone who cannot see them. That was the moment Junho remembered why he fell in love with her. Naomi was strong. But her strength was not cruelty. She had every reason to be bitter. Instead, she chose to remain the person she had always been. The next morning, the Park family received a response from NC Innovations. They expected rejection. They expected Naomi to refuse. Instead, she agreed to a meeting. When Chairman Park heard the news, he was silent. She agreed. His assistant nodded. Yes. Why? Nobody had an answer, because everyone expected Naomi to want revenge. They expected her to remind them of every insult, every rejection, every moment they made her feel like she did not belong. But Naomi did something they never expected. She acted like a professional. The day of the meeting arrived. The same boardroom where decisions had once been made about Junho's future was now the place where Naomi held the power. Executives stood as she entered, not because they respected her position, because they finally understood it. She walked calmly toward the table. Chairman Park looked at her. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The last time they had been in the same room, he had been the powerful chairman. She had been the young woman trying to prove herself. Now everything had changed. You have done well, Chairman Park finally said. It was not an apology, not yet, but it was the first time he acknowledged her success. Naomi nodded. Thank you. The meeting began. The executives explained the situation. They discussed the technology. They discussed the partnership. But beneath every business conversation was the history nobody wanted to mention. Finally, Chairman Park looked directly at her. I assume you understand the position this puts my family in. Naomi looked at him. I understand the position your company is in. The answer was respectful, but it reminded him of something. She was no longer the woman asking for acceptance. She was a leader making decisions. And after everything that happened, he asked, why would you even consider helping us? The room became silent. Everyone waited for her answer, because that answer would reveal whether Naomi had returned for business or for revenge. Naomi looked across the table at the family that had once turned their backs on her. Then she said something nobody expected. Naomi looked across the table at the family that had once turned their backs on her. Then she answered, because helping someone does not mean I agree with everything they did. Nobody moved. Chairman Park watched her carefully. I could walk away, Naomi continued, and nobody would blame me. Her eyes briefly moved toward Junho. But I know what this company means to him. Junho looked down. He had spent years believing he had to choose between the woman he loved and the family he was born into. But Naomi had never asked him to hate them. She had only asked him to be honest about who he was. Naomi continued, I am not here because I forgot what happened. I am not here because those years did not hurt. The room became even quieter. I am here because I built my company on solving problems, not creating more of them. Those words affected Chairman Park more than he expected, because he realized something painful. Naomi was showing him the very quality he had claimed his family valued most: strength, not the kind that came from power, the kind that came from character. The partnership moved forward, but it was not easy. Naomi did not simply hand over a solution. She challenged the company. She asked difficult questions. She demanded changes. Some executives struggled with it. They were used to people respecting the Park name. They were not used to someone respectfully challenging their decisions. During one meeting, an executive disagreed with Naomi's plan. "With respect, this is not how we have operated for decades." Naomi nodded. "And that is exactly why the company is in this position." The room went silent. The executive looked offended, but Chairman Park did not interrupt. For the first time, he listened. Because deep down, he knew she was right. The company did not need someone to protect its past. It needed someone brave enough to build its future. Over the next few months, the transformation began. The technology partnership helped stabilize the company. New strategies were introduced. International investors regained confidence. Slowly, the Park empire began recovering, but the biggest change was not financial. It was personal. Chairman Park began seeing Naomi differently, not as the woman who took his son away, but as the woman who helped him understand his son. One evening after a long meeting, Chairman Park asked Jun-ho to stay behind. For years, those private conversations had been filled with disappointment and expectations. This time, something felt different. "I was wrong about her," Chairman Park finally said. Jun-ho looked surprised. His father rarely admitted mistakes. "I thought she was taking you away from this family." He paused. "But she was the person who brought you closer to who you were supposed to become." Jun-ho remained quiet, because hearing those words from his father meant more than he expected. "Do you know what bothered me the most?" Chairman Park continued. "I believed I was protecting your future." Jun-ho looked at him. "But I never asked if it was the future you wanted." For the first time in years, father and son were not speaking as chairman and heir. They were speaking as family. Later that night, Jun-ho told Naomi what happened. They stood together at home, looking out at the city they had built their life in. "My father apologized." Naomi smiled. "That must have been difficult for him." Jun-ho laughed softly. "Very." She looked at him. "How do you feel?" He thought about it, relieved. "Oh, because he accepted us." Jun-ho shook his head. "No." He took her hand. "Because I finally realized I did not need his approval to know I made the right choice." Naomi smiled. That was the journey they had both taken. At the beginning, they had both been fighting to prove something. Naomi wanted to prove she belonged. Jun-ho wanted to prove he could be the son his family expected. But along the way, they learned something more important. Their worth was never decided by the people who underestimated them. Years later, people would tell the story of how Naomi Carter saved the Park family company. They would talk about her intelligence, her leadership, her success. But Jun-ho knew the most important part of the story was not the company she built. It was the life they built together. A life where two people from different worlds found common ground. A Black American woman who refused to shrink herself. A Korean man who finally found the courage to choose his own happiness. And a family that learned too late that love was never their enemy. It was the thing that could have brought them together all along. The Park family had once believed Jun-ho was weak because he chose Naomi. They believed he had sacrificed power for love, but they were wrong. Because choosing love when the world tells you to choose comfort takes courage. Choosing understanding when you have every reason to hold on to anger takes strength. And choosing to build something new instead of protecting what is broken is what creates a legacy that lasts. If this story touched you, share your thoughts in the comments. Would you have forgiven the people who rejected you if they came back needing your help? And if you enjoy emotional stories about love, family, and unexpected second chances, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the next story. Because sometimes the people who are underestimated are the ones who change everything.